right. Awesome. All right, cool. So now we're being recorded. So the Wicked Smart webinar, we started this back in March to help bring resources and experts to the business owners across the Midwest, to our clients, our prospects, and to connect you with resources and the people and the type of information that you need right now inside your business for the kind of the small local businesses. So our goal is to help you drive sales, drive revenue, arm you with the right tools and the right resources. So that's why the Wicked Smart webinar is here. And we will bring in experts both internally and externally to help your business. So I am the marketing manager in Madison. I will be kind of facilitating the discussion today. It will be recorded. We will send the slides out to everybody that has registered for the Wicked Smart webinar. So without further ado, I'll introduce our two speakers. Stephen Semple, he's a direct response wizard. He's the partner of the Wizard of Ads in Canada. And if you're not familiar with the Wizard of Ads, you should be. You should familiarize yourself with it. Roy Williams, we have a lot of different experts and resources and multiple selling books, and he's just a great resource from all things copywriting and messaging when it comes to branding and advertising. So Stephen is the partner up in Canada. So, and then we also have Jeff, who will be running most of the show today. He's an ad consultant and copywriter, also with the Wizard of Ads here. So I'm going to let Jeff share his screen here because he has some fancy slides that he'll be able to take the conversation from now on. So, all
right.
Jeff, take it away.
I am. So can you all see my?
Yep, we got you.
All right. Cool. So this is very much a how-to presentation. Not a lot of, some theory, but mostly how-to. And I'm going to go fast, but I've been told that you guys will get the PDF of the slides. So just don't get bogged down in notes and sit back and enjoy. Basically, it's about headlines. I'm going to teach you how to write great headlines that make your headline into a must-click event. Because a headline is like a parachute. If you don't open, nothing else matters, right? When you get an inbox full, what do? You start deleting anything that doesn't look as incredibly interesting and relevant, right? And it's kind of the same way when you get your mail, right? According to the direct marketing legend, Gary Halbert, America sorts its mail over trash can, right? Now, 2 decades ago, that was the only exercise we got into high-speed sorting for relevance. But now we do it every time we do a search result. Every time we open our mailbox, we sort for relevance. And this is not new. Even way back in the Madison Avenue days, Ogilvy said that on average, 5 times as many people read the headline as read your body copy. When you've written your headline, you have spent 80 cents out of your dollar. And that's pretty astonishing, isn't it? Because most of us do not spend 80% of our time on the headline, though we should if we read the math, right? If we do the math on that. Now, when it comes to headlines and you say, okay, well, how do I write better headlines now that I know how important they are? Most of the time you're told to use templates. Download the 20 best headlines of all time, the 50 best headlines, and just mad-lib it. So you could take Rinso's Who Else Wants a Whiter Wash with No Hard Work, and you'll just make it relevant for your industry or your company. And that works okay if you're sending out one sales letter or couple. But once you start putting out blog posts and status updates to Instagrams and tweets and newsletters, you need a way to come up with headlines that are novel and will continue to work and you can produce a lot of. And the formula is this. You want it to be relevant and entertaining at the same time. You need both of those things. And I'm going to give you 2 different tools. And it's like take from column A, go to column B, and it'll allow you to have both of those elements. So let's start with relevance. The best framework I've ever seen and ever come up with for relevance has been Blair Warren's 1-sentence persuasion course. It is, it used to be free online. I think it's now a Kindle book, but if you search for Blair Warren 1-sentence persuasion course, you can get it. And it really is centered around one sentence, which I'm going to give you right now for free. And that sentence is, and it's as good as he bills it as, is people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. Of course, being an online copywriter, I had to bullet that out, right? It's a list. It's got to be bulleted. So there's 5 things there. Encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. And your content should be doing at least one of those things, if not multiple. And if you do, you will be influential with your audience, and it'll be relevant, right? If you bake that into the headline, it will have relevance. Now, on the headline, unlike the body copy, you can do more than those 5 things, right? Because the headline can do the opposite tack to hook them. So not only can you encourage their dreams, you can warn against the potential destruction of their dreams. Instant relevance, right? Not only can you justify their failures, you can imply that they might be their own worst enemy. Not only, and then, tell them how to overcome that. But you can not only allay their fears, you can agitate their fears. You can not only confirm their suspicions, you can thwart their conventional wisdom. And you can not only help them throw rocks at their enemies, but shock them with unusual praise for their enemies. If you do any one of those, or especially multiple of them, your headline will have massive relevance to your audience, which is half the battle. Now, I'm going to show you some examples taken from Copyblogger, just because they tend to have great headlines. And so, are you burning your most important client? Great headline. And you can see that it's implying that you might be your own worst enemy, and it's agitating your fears. Why the FTC guidelines could become your best friend. And this is back when the FTC did new guidelines about testimonials, right? They couldn't be on average. They had to be the average for results. And so what it's doing, it's allaying their fears around these new guidelines, but it's also shocking them with unusual praise for what they might consider themselves an enemy, or at least an aggravation. A lot of copywriters that work in FTC-controlled fields feel that way. So that's one way you can get relevance. But then it's like, what about sex appeal, right? What about the entertainment factor, right? And here's another Copyblogger headline: feel great naked, confidence boosters for getting personal, right? And when you start looking at entertainment, I'm going to stop looking at Copyblogger for a moment and start looking at Cosmo, because Cosmo understands entertaining headlines. And one of the things you find about them is, yes, the headlines themselves, the short headlines, are exactly what you think they would be. But the real power comes from the subhead, right? Thrill every inch of his body using a move no woman has dared to try on him before. Trust us, you'll be the first girl naughty enough to try number 43 on him with 50 sex tricks. And then the dirty sex rule happy couples swear by. Notice it's not just sex, it's the subhead that draws you in. And what I would cause you to remember is the ADIS, right? You might remember this. It's a common copywriting acronym: attention, interest, desire, action. And I put satisfaction at the end, but a lot of people just say ADA, right? So what you'll find is a lot of times, especially in the internet world, the headline is all about relevance and scent, and it is attention. But the subhead is all about creating desire. So you get attention and interest, and then you do desire. So instead of just Royal Riviera pears, which would be what they came in on a search, you have exclusive, luxurious, and so big and juicy, you eat them with a spoon. And it's similar to the Cosmo, right? So the framework I would use to do that entertainment portion of it is from Sally Hogshead's book, Fascinate. And it is a pretty good business book, but it is an outstanding framework for getting entertainment triggers into your headline. And she says there's 7 triggers for fascination. And they are lust, mystique, alarm, prestige, power, vice, and trust. And so Cosmo headlines, right, it starts with sex, so there's always lust there, but you'll notice that they usually bake something else into it, and it's often vice. And we'll go into what each one of these means, but it's always about the naughty girl or the thing that's a little bit taboo. So that's what gives it the added entertainment value. So let's look at each trigger individually when we talk about entertainment. So lust is not just sex, but it's any kind of opposite gender attraction, or also any kind of sensuous appeal, right? So if you're selling food, you can use sort of a gluttonous, desirous lust thing. So, the earlier headline we looked at, feel great naked, confidence boosters for getting personal, right? Not only were you encouraging their dreams for being able to be personal in their blogging to good effect, but you're allaying their fears that they might, reveal too much or not, or, they might reveal themselves and not be accepted. And it's got that lust factor of entertainment baked in. What belly dancing taught me about personal branding, right? So you're encouraging their dreams, you're thwarting their traditional wisdom, because most people wouldn't associate belly dancing and personal branding, but it's also got that lust entertainment value baked in. Mystique, anything hidden or other or behind the curtain, ancient, paranormal, etc. Right? So the ancient persuasion technique behind, but wait, there's more, right? So you're encouraging their dreams by giving them a persuasion technique if they're a blogger or a copywriter, right? You're shocking them with unusual praise for direct response marketing, right? Like if you're a blogger, you don't normally think a cheesy infomercial is something you can learn from. And the mystique comes from ancient, right? So that's what makes it a powerful headline. You're stacking a whole bunch of techniques. The Houdini guide for getting noticed online, right? You're encouraging their dreams for getting noticed online, and you're adding a little bit of prestige in there because of Houdini, but it's also the mystique around the magical mystery superhero of Houdini. Alarm. Alarm is a call to arms, right? Any kind of threat of violence, any kind of threat of something happening bad. So the critical mistake that keeps bloggers broke, right? Being broke that's being alarmed, and there's a critical mistake you're making, right? And if you think you're doing it wrong because you're not having the success you want, that's confirming your suspicion, but you're using that entertainment trigger of alarm. Is reading blog posts worth your time? Again, you might be confirming their suspicion that they're wasting too much time reading and not enough time writing. You could also be thwarting their traditional wisdom if they're reading blogs. You're agitating their fears and you're throwing in some alarm. Prestige, right? If you can refer to something that has rank, respect, authority, honor, status. 5 things that Depeche Mode can teach you about online marketing, right? With a certain age group, Depeche Mode has some prestige to it, right? And if, they can teach you about marketing, they became famous and rich, right? So you're encouraging their dreams, you're confirming their suspicions, and you're using prestige. Ernest Hemingway's top 5 tips for writing well. Okay, you're encouraging their dreams, you too can write well, and you're using the prestige of Ernest Hemingway. Power. People and things that control us or our ability to obtain your will or control them. Right? 6 steps to ask for powerful testimonials. You don't have to wait for them to come to you. You can ask. That's a power play. What a best-selling author can teach you about hooking your readers. If you can hook your readers and compel them to read on, that's a power play. Vice. Anything forbidden, right? Forbidden fruit, anything taboo, anything scandalous. How to quit hitting the snooze button on your blog. How I became a better writer thanks to distracted, hungover college kids. Warning, use these 5 sure headline formulas at your own risk. Anytime you see a headline that talks about something that's illegal in 7 states and under investigation in 11 more, that's a vice play. Then you have trust, loyalty, reliability, faithfulness, right? Can you turn your back on somebody? Who do you trust for your online business advice? The Betty Crocker secret to email marketing that works. So those are the triggers you can use for entertainment. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking that, Jeff, that's great, but how do I use it? How do I surefire ways to employ each of these entertainment triggers? And the key to it is to kill your inner school marm. The inner school marm that says you shouldn't use adjectives. Adjectives are bad. Kill the adjectives. Right? Because when it comes to headlines, adjectives are actually the thing that makes it work. right? This famous headline of a little mistake that cost a farmer $3,000 a year. This is Depression era headline, right? It's the little, the adjective, that makes that headline powerful. How I made a fortune with a fool idea. Well, it's the fool part of the fool idea that makes that interesting and powerful. How a bald-headed barber saved my hair. Well, it's bald-headed that makes that interesting. So to heck with the school marm, use adjectives, right? So for lust, if you're trying to bake lust trigger into your headline, you can use adjectives like luscious, drool-worthy, naughty, blush-worthy, scream-worthy, bedroom, naked, XXX, R-rated, adult-only, sinful, salty, naughty, etc. Right? Pole dancer, belly dancer, bad girl, naughty girl, any celebrity sex symbol's name also works as a noun, right? The Megan Fox Guide to Keeping Them Talking. Adjectives for Mystique are ancient, lost, secret, insider, forgotten, exotic, uncensored, confidential, you've never heard before, they don't want you to know, right? Confessional, right? Confessions of a admin, right? That's adding some mystique to it. Any group that's perceived by your audience as other insiders or as on the other side of the curtain will elicit mystique. So if you're writing to aspiring authors, then agents and publishers carry mystique, right? For men, women carry mystique. For women, men carry mystique. So 3 insider PPC secrets that Google doesn't want you to know, right? In this case, Google is the mystique. Alarm, surprising, shocking, career-ending, explode, gut-wrenching, the harmless habit that, what turns blank off, what never to do, the one thing never to do, 7 biggest mistakes in. You could also include any animal or person or object related with horror, right? 5 shocking persuasion tactics of child molesters, things that even wary parents fall for. For prestige, right, of Hollywood A-listers, Harvard, presidential, CEO, right? Now, prestige is relative to the audience, right? What's prestigious among a biker gang is different among bankers, right? So you need to tailor that to your audience. But copy blogger headline techniques, all top converting copywriters use without even knowing it, would be one way of doing it. Power. Anything that talks about putting people in control. Decode, puts you in control. Make blank trip over themselves for you. Turns blank into slaves. Charm, convince, persuade, beguile, enchant, intrigue, right? 5 words that get the truth out of clients. That's a power play right there. Adjectives for vice, dirty, naughty, badass, bad girl, blushworthy, forbidden, barred, underground, sinful, decadent, jail-worthy, confessions of, illegal in, right? Somewhat similar to vice, to lust, but just because of in our culture, the way we allied those things, but it is different. So forbidden persuasion secrets from the confessions of a Soviet change agent. And trust, you have bankable, clockwork, automatic, surefire, no fail, that always work, that never fail, right? Surefire, cowboy wisdom for converting visitors into customers. So putting these 2 things together is where we get the power. So what you want to do is you want to use your 1-sentence persuasion course relevance framework to create a basic angle of approach for your topic. And then you want to add in or layer in fascination triggers to make entertainment exciting into your headline, right? Through adjectives. So, and then again, you employ your fascination triggers either through adjectives or through nouns that have the right connotations. So again, yeah, Stephen, did you?
One of the things I was going to say is Jeff, just coming back to your thing about adjectives, and this is one of the times where adjectives is our friend. We're often in writing, adjectives are not our friend. Is take a look here. Go back to the old-fashioned thesaurus. The thesaurus.com is a great tool for when you're stuck looking for adjectives. And often what will end up happening, you put that in and it'll start taking your mind down a different pathway for finding different ways to describe describe things, especially if you're stuck. It's a way to get unstuck and away from the words that you typically maybe every day use, and open up pathways to other words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so there's two ways you could use this framework, right? One, if you're sitting there and you're trying to brainstorm things to write about or promote, or you're coming up with an offer, you can use these 10 triggers for relevance, and you can generate ideas, right? If you're content marketing, well, how can I write about something that would confirm my audience's suspicions, right? Or how can I agitate their fears? Or what's a failure they may be running into that I can justify for them, right? Why you're not building the audience the way you want, and why it's not your fault, right? Might be, and now that's not a great headline, but that's an angle of approach around which you could craft the headline, and then you can create the body, the information to back that up. The other way is, if you already have written the thing, you can look at which piece of this, of your content or your letter or whatever it is you're sending out that you need the headline for. You can figure out where it, because if it is relevant to your audience, it's going to fall along one of these 10 things, right? And that will give you a good idea of how to write the headline.
And
Once you have,
if I may, on this list, both of these lists, you start off with David Ogilvy talking about how 80% of the work is done in the headline. Well, David Ogilvy was a big believer in writing 100 headlines. You write 100 headlines, you grind it out, and you write 100 headlines. So when we're talking about this belief that it's most of the work, I believe that most times people do not grind out even 10 versions of the headline. Now, where this list becomes really critical, Jeff, and I think can really, really help people, is if you are committing yourself to doing that and writing out a whole pile of headlines, there's a certain point where you run out of ideas. And then that's when you can go to something like this and go, all right, I've got to write 20 more interesting headlines. Maybe what I need to do is look at how I can justify the failure, or maybe I'm not aggravating the fear, or go to your next list. Maybe there is an opportunity to bring Mystique in it, and I've not considered that. It opens up those other pathways. And what I'm going to tell you is the awesome headlines happen when you get past all the boring crap that you wrote the first 30 versions. Right? Like the ones you go, oh yeah, boom, 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 boom. And then you start going boom, boom. Like that's then all of a sudden when you find the gold.
absolutely.
Super helpful. Super helpful.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that if you talk to anyone that's good at doing headlines, they all say the same thing, right? And they may have a different number. It may not be 100, but they're all saying you have to write X number to get past the obvious ones, right? And then eventually you're going to come out with a lot of crap as you reach, but you will hit something golden. And so this is a good way to make sure you get past that sticking point. And also it's a good way to generate, like if you're looking for product to market fit, and to use business terminology, starting with the headline is a good way to make sure that will appeal to people, is make sure you're writing something to begin with that's gonna have a good appeal. And again, adjectives rule. Don't listen to the school marm. So here's a couple caveats as you go about trying to use this. You want, for digital, right? If it's a landing page or a website, strong scent is number one. So, right, if they're coming in from a search for best laundry detergent, I don't know, if you want to have that as the headline, right? Like you don't want to get too fancy with it. You do want to reflect the search terms that they used, right?
Know they're in the right place.
Right. You want to make sure that they know that they're in the right place and that there's a strong continuity from what they clicked on. And so keywords reign. But if you remember the ATIS, attention, interest, desire, action, satisfaction, you know that then you can write a subheadline that pushes desire to keep reading. I'm in the right place. Ooh, this looks good. And that's where you can get more creative with the subheadline, just like we saw with Cosmo and with Harry and David.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
So scent is kind of like congruence from where they came from to where they land, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Being able to, so there is no lack of continuity from, I came from Google Ads and it said this thing, and then I got to this landing page. It should feel the same, right?
100%. Yeah.
I clicked on something about barbecues, and this is clearly about barbecues.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Just
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the word scent, but I don't know if everybody else is. So I wanted to just
No, thank you for that, Andy. And that's exactly right. I like to think every link is like a teleportation. And if you think about teleportation, first thing you do is look around, make sure you went where you thought you were going, right?
Right.
You don't want to have taken a left turn in Albuquerque. And so what you do is you look at the headlines and the pictures to see, yeah, I am on a page about barbecues, right? They didn't take me somewhere else. So yeah. You want to split test your headlines and subject lines, right? And that's easy to do when you follow Stephen's advice and you grind out 100 headlines, right? Because you'll probably have more than one that's really, really strong. And so split testing them will give you a great way to do that.
And then can you just explain split testing? Just because I'm a marketing nerd, so I get this stuff, but not everybody else is here. So just kind of like maybe some examples or unpack that a little bit.
Sure. So for instance, okay, go ahead, Stephen.
So the mechanics of it is what you can do is you can set, so what you could do is you could run 2 Google AdWords, for example, and have a different headline on the 2 ads and see which one gets a better click-through rate, which one gets a better conversion. And you can say to Google, serve this up. You can get even more sophisticated using some various software tools that will have it also that when you hit a landing page, you can rotate the landing pages. I can present this landing page and I can present this landing page and take a look at the difference in the results in them. So that's basically split testing, is when you're serving up various options and you're seeing which one does best. And what I'm going to recommend is the best way to do it is use the concept of a control, run a limited number, figure out which one is best, have that one now being defined as your control, and then you run against that control with the objective of I'm trying to beat the control. That's old school direct marketing techniques, but it's the whole idea of establish a control and then continually try to beat it.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like about split testing the most is the fact that you're letting your customer kind of let you choose which one's the best one. Because otherwise, in the past, especially with traditional media, you don't know which one's going to work. And you kind of guess on which the number one thing, like, hey, we think this is the best choice. But with digital, within a matter of days, you can just kind of let your customer or prospect guide which one they want to see or hear, and then just keep changing that out, right? Would you agree with that?
I
100%.
But what drives me nuts with a lot of digital practitioners is they don't practice the idea of a control. It's like this constant changing of everything rather than, look, I've got to have this one. Because they'll go, well, look, I'll run these 3 and the next week I'll run these 3 and it's done better. Well, you actually don't know if it's done better. There may be some other third force in the background. I've got these 3. This one's the best. I now test it against these other 2. So your control should always be a constant that runs across all the campaigns. And you measure to the control. You don't measure to a conversion rate. You measure to the control.
Yeah, it becomes, it shifts it to really more of a scientific way of approaching messaging and marketing, and allowing basically who you're almost experimenting with, your customers, and allowing them to guide, okay, the control and the test. And if the test beats your control, then you put the test in and then you keep trying to beat it. And then those 1% changes over time will only make your budget stretch farther, only make your bank account grow faster, and have you spend less on especially from a digital standpoint, on a cost per conversion or cost per lead or cost per phone call, whatever the key performance indicator is for that business owner, right?
Yeah. And Andy, to your point, the great thing about testing is it overcomes the hippo factor. And the hippo is the highest person's opinion, right? Oh, I like this one. We're using that. Hey, let's run a test, right? We're going to take it last resort, run it. And is that rule and the great testing, your misses go away and your hits become cumulative, right? So when you win, that gets baked into everything you do, right? And when you lose, you just stop doing that. So it's nice. It's nice that way. And yeah, you can do that with everything. You can, if you've got a newsletter, you can split test subject lines, right?
Tim Ferriss, before he wrote his first book, The 4-Hour Work Week, he ran Google ads ahead of that, testing various book headlines, and that was the book headline that turned out to have the best conversion and click-through rate, and that's what he chose to call the book. So you can, there's lots of things you can choose to test headlines on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've found that, like, as you look at whether it be Google pay-per-click or Facebook ads or Instagram ads, being able to have those different headlines kind of tested out, or just like Tim Ferriss did, you can kind of, all right, well, I tested it PPC, but then I use that and you could use it in traditional media or other messaging that isn't as adaptable or changeable or, as easy to change down the road, where it's like sometimes if you're doing a newspaper or a direct mail piece, once you do it, there's 3,000 of them out there, or a billboard up, and it's kind of done. at least for the near future, right? So digital, you can kind of test it in digital and then kind of carry that through to the rest of your marketing strategy.
I do know that one of the more successful, or the most successful nonfiction publishers or business book publishers, Ray Bard, has done that. He's used digital to test out content and titles and stuff like that before going to print with it, right?
And I'm going to really challenge the people who are listening. I'm going to, because we really mean this when we say this, is that a big part of the work is done with the headline, right? That the headline is what causes people to read the first sentence. The first sentence is what causes people to read the paragraph. The last sentence is what causes people to read the next paragraph. So a massive amount of heavy lifting is done in that first headline. So I'm going to ask people, be honest with yourself. Last time you wrote an article, how much time did you spend on the article, and how much time did you spend on the headline? And I'm going to guess that the vast majority of people spent 2% of the time on the headline and 98% of the time on the article. And there is no way around that. The tools that Jeff has given is a great way to go from, well, how do I actually stretch myself to write those extra headlines that is actually really that is really going to be where the gold is.
Cool. Yeah, we have about 5 minutes, 6 minutes or so for questions. So if you have a mic, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. You can ask it live. Or if you prefer, if you don't have a mic, if you want to type it out in the chat box or the question and answer box, then we can have our experts here answer that for you and kind of have a discussion about it. So we've reserved the last 5 minutes, 6 minutes or so for that. So if anyone else has a question out there, I have a few of my own, but I'd love to hear if there's anyone else on the webinar here that would like to ask a question maybe for their business or something that you want a point of clarification or maybe a topic you want to dive in a little bit deeper on. So
off with all the work.
What's that?
I scare them off and tell them it was so much work.
It looks like this one came in, which is it's a great question. And it's, do you find yourself writing the headline, then the content, or put together the content first, then build the headline? And the correct answer is both. But I think that you tend to have a little bit more success when you write the headline first. And even when you don't write the headline first, when you get the idea of the headline, like this is the essential thing that's going to be really attractive about this piece that I'm doing. This is the angle of approach for the relevance, and I know I can bake some of these triggers in, and then you write the content, and then you write your 100 headlines, right? That's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I tend to go back, forth, write headline, write some content, something in the content triggers a headline, something that, like for me, it's really a game of tennis, for sure.
So if you were like coaching a novice or somebody, I mean, most business owners, they get into business because they love a particular, well, they love what they do, but they didn't get into business to write headlines or marketing and things like that. So I know that from a person who is more analytical minded, creative writing is a challenge. Do you have any like shortcuts or suggestions to help a business owner that is new to this?
Read great literature. Honest to God.
Yeah, I think that for me, like I have a whole, I call it a swipe file, to where I just, when I see good email headlines and things, or good PPC headlines, I just save them in one kind of big conglomerate that I can go and just model or borrow, or better steal it sometimes, or at least chunks of it. So Bob has a question. So how do you determine which of the 7 emotions like Mystique to center your headline around?
So if you have your content, it's what will actually fit, right? So if you wrote your content and it doesn't have any natural, if it isn't an ancient technique, if it isn't about people that write the others that people would find interesting and attractive, then Mystique kind of gets taken off the table, right? And so it's what you can use based upon what you've already written. Now, if you're creating the headline first, you can use any of them. And so you can try whichever one that appeals to you, or whichever one becomes the most powerful. And then you can go figure out how you do that, right? So a lot of the times it's what pieces do I have to work with, right? There's only so much in the pantry, and you got to come up with a dish from what you have in the pantry. You don't get to go out and buy more groceries.
But there's an important point Jeff is making here, is that if there's a jarring difference between the headline and the first part of the body copy, you're going to lose the reader. Like, okay, great, I've attracted their attention, I spent all this time and attention, but I'm not going to hold it if all of a sudden I have this heavy Mystique headline and then no Mystique in the first part of the body copy. So there can't be a disconnect there. There's got to be that connection to keep the reader engaged in what it is that we're telling them.
So when you're thinking about headlines, when you think about, because we're not all talking about written advertising, right? I mean, it's more prevalent in blogs and print and PPC and stuff. But like, do you have any pointers on like how you could do this if you're writing some more audio or maybe even video messaging? How all that weaves in together?
Yeah. For audio, if it's a traditional radio ad, your headline is your first mental image, that first line from the radio ad, right? And you really do have to hook the listener to keep listening in and not either mentally tune out or physically tune out. And so you could apply this exact same formula to these same triggers for relevance and entertainment to that FM first mental image, that first line of copy.
Cool. Yeah, because I think that when you talk about print and writing, you can get pretty focused on that. If you don't do a lot of that, you're like, well, how does this apply to me, right? So we have about 5 minutes left. So if anyone else has a question, certainly feel free to answer it in the chat box or raise your hand, and we can answer it for you. In the meantime, I do have a poll that I'm going to turn on right now. So for those of you that don't have a question, just kind of want to sit it's only one question, so it'll take you a second. But I've started the poll here. So if you joined us today, we certainly appreciate your insight, kind of how you heard about the webinar today. So, and please, for the people, have this be mainly clients and prospects for Midwest Family employees and stuff. You don't necessarily need to answer it. So, but yeah, we have about another couple minutes left, and I'll introduce the next webinar topic. Just a reminder, this is recorded, so this will be on our YouTube channel. If you have questions, you can email us. We certainly like your feedback. If you have topics or experts, or even want to be a speaker on future Wicked Smart webinars, or know somebody that should be, reach out to us, because we want to keep the topics relevant for you. We want to keep this something that you see value in, coming back every other week or so, and just constantly trying to improve ourselves and the ability of the quality of content that we can provide to you all. So any other questions out there right now?
While we're waiting for any more to come in, Andy, you mentioned video, and I would say that, the headline for the video, either it's above the video or on the facing card, right, that shows before someone hits play, makes a huge difference. And along with that is the image that's shown, right, before they hit play, and how those two things interact can make a huge difference. And it's,
sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, we've done testing on that, where we've changed the thumbnail on a YouTube video, right? Just to speak to your, preview, and the thumbnail you pick to show on a YouTube video can actually impact how much that video gets consumed, right? So you can think about even that thumbnail image as being the headline for your YouTube video.
And I kind of want to end with this, to where it's like, what is the ROI of having headline, like having because this is a lot of work, right? We're like, what is the ROI in like 2 minutes of your quick explanation to a business owner? Like, why should they care about this stuff? And how's it going to put more money back in their pocket?
Sure. Let me put it this way. So let's say you have a list you're sending your email out to, right? Now, it costs a lot of money to increase the amount of people you send that email to build your list, or to buy a list, or right? Well, if your open rate's 20% and you take it to 40%, you just doubled your list by doing nothing more than improving your headline, right? And if that then converts to people taking you up on your offer, right, there's no telling how much that adds to the bottom line.
If Tim Ferriss was here, because he's publicly stated this, one of the biggest reasons why he thinks the 1 Hour Work Week was a best-selling book was because he came up with a good title.
Yeah, I mean, spot on. So I 100% agree with that. But it's one of the things that you put so much work into the content, and sometimes, like you had mentioned, the headline gets left behind. The extra sizzle, the extra kind of sexiness, the extra effort that it takes to write 30, 50, 100 headlines can be the difference of a flop or $1 million idea. So it's that extra work, of extra massage, the extra adjectives and nouns and creative energy invest behind it that can be the difference between a campaign working or you wasting your money. So I'm a huge believer in that. Thank you, Jeff and Stephen. We really appreciate you being here. This was amazing for me. I know I can probably speak for everyone here that we got a lot out of this today. I want to introduce our next Wicked Smart webinar. We're talking about 5-star customer service, creating clients, not just customers. And we're bringing on Greg and Kim. Kim's from Rockford office, Midwest Family Rockford, and Greg's from Springfield, Illinois. And between the two of them, they have over 30, 40 years of creating great customer experiences to keep them coming back, giving referrals, and just kind of creating more of like that family relationship-based environment between your business and your customers. So be sure to reserve your calendars and set that time aside. We'll get the recording here in the next day or so with the slides, so you'll be able to watch it again. It'll be up on our YouTube channel in the next 24 hours. We really appreciate you joining us today, and wish you the best of luck on the rest of this week. So thanks again, Jeff.
Thanks, Andy. It was my pleasure.
Great. Thank you.